Thank you very much. Well, joining me here in Wakefield, the former Conservative Minister, now reality star Edwina Currie, apprentice winner turned Brexit Party candidate Michelle Dewberry, and fervent Corbyn supporter and Labour activist, the lead singer of the Sheffield band Reverend and the Makers, John McClure. Good evening. Thank you very much to all of you for coming. Key issue here, when I talk to people in Wakefield all day, has been the whole question of trust. Now, last year, Edwina Currie, you called Boris Johnson a man without principle. What prompted that?
Well, what we're hearing on the doorstep is actually people that are bothered about Boris's reputation. They
but
like
you
what
were
he's saying about Brexit.
You were clearly, you said he was a man without principle. That's a very strong thing to say.
Well, we had a saint for 3.5 years and we didn't get very far. We had a lovely woman in Theresa May who I admired enormously, and she did her level best and we got absolutely nowhere. In the end, if we're going to get Brexit, we need somebody who's, shall we say, a little bit more ruthless.
So is it okay then, do you think, to have a leader who says we are going to have no checks in Northern Ireland and repeatedly say that, whereas Brexit Secretary is saying absolutely the opposite? And do you think it is okay to say that Parliament voted down the Queen's speech when they absolutely didn't? I mean, what is the point of not telling the truth?
Well, with all due respect, you know, if my little granddaughter says she would get her homework done by Friday and then she's ill and she can't do it, in other words, if something prevents
well, thank God your granddaughter's not the Prime Minister.
Let me answer your question. I won't answer to my own way, Kirsty, as you well know. That's not lying. That's wanting to do something and being prevented. What we've been trying to do is get Brexit through and to get the vote of the people made effective, which is what we're being told on the doorstep we want, and it's been Parliament that's been preventing that. And we have to have a majority to do that. We have to have an absolute majority, not a coalition. We have to have a majority.
John, you were the man responsible for the "Oh, Jeremy Corbyn" refrain. It presumably goes round your head in the middle of the night and all day. But the problem is that actually now it feels rather deflated, doesn't it? I mean, we're moved on to a different time. There's concerns over Jeremy Corbyn's, some would say, fence-sitting and obfuscation on Brexit. The shine has come off that.
I mean, I've been out doorstepping today. I feel entirely the opposite. I mean, especially, I think we've seen a shift away from class politics towards a more generational split. So a lot of the older voters who I've been talking to today, I guess they have kind of bought into a lot of that white noise that we hear in the media with regards to Jeremy Corbyn and have kind of bought into the Brexit thing.
Do you think the older generation actually has the wisdom of looking back on previous elections and actually saying, well, actually, this is how we feel it is, and we don't think that Labour is paying us enough attention and indeed valuing us? Well,
there's two things there. My wife's grandfather was 103, passed away this morning, and was
sorry to hear that.
He was a war hero. He voted Remain because he saw the EU as the kind of guarantor of peace. Now, with regards to Corbyn's neutrality on Brexit, it worked for Harold Wilson, and in my mind, that's more honest. It's okay to be unsure about the EU. This idea that we have to make a binary choice, we're either in or out, is overly simplistic, and I object to the kind of characterisation of the voters in this area, you know.
Well, that's interesting because a lot of voters in this area, you know, I met June in the hairdressers who'd voted, and her whole family voted Labour all their life, but felt this time she just couldn't do it. And on that basis, Michelle Dewberry, is the danger the Brexit Party is actually running out of steam now? You've lost 4 MEPs today. Just give up. Let the Tories do the job.
No, absolutely not. I absolutely believe this, and the reason that I stood in the first place was because I believe that there are a huge number of people who voted Brexit who feel politically homeless without the Brexit Party. So are these 4 MEPs
wrong? Are they wrong to say we vote Tory? Is that wrong of the MEPs?
What I believe, and I couldn't be any more certain in this if I tried, that there are a huge number of Brexiteers who were previously Labour that would not vote for Tory if you paid them. And without the Brexit Party, they would simply abstain because they are fed up of the lot of them. So we absolutely serve a purpose. We stand to represent the people who are Brexiteers who would not go for Labour and simply would not go for Tory.
That actually suits us fine in some of the marginal Labour-held seats in the north of England, because you're helping to drain votes from Labour, which is making our job a lot easier. But you were asking about trust. The issue about Brexit is not just about Brexit, Kirsty. It's about whether voters feel that they can trust politicians to carry out the promises that they have made. And the key promise was we had a vote. You know, we hear about, oh, you'll have another vote, you'll have another vote. No. What people then say to us is, where's the guarantee that you would respect the result of a second referendum when you haven't respected the result of the first one? Let's get the first one done, and then we can get on with doing everything else.
It's interesting, as I was saying earlier, that there's people who have been Labour supporters who will vote this time because they're Leave voters, but don't regard themselves as being Conservatives. They'll do it one time round, then they may come back to you.
I have family members who voted Leave. They also voted Remain. This idea that, like, we're forced into this binary choice just doesn't bear out in reality. I've been on the doorstep talking to people today. You talk about trust. What question is it that the answer is we elect the same people for the fourth election running? You know, I think we all agree that our society and our body politic is damaged in some way. Now, there are two solutions to that. We can either follow the Labour manifesto, which is genuinely transformative, or we can go back to the same old thing. And the choice, in my mind, is really clear. My family are nurses. We've got the longest NHS waiting list in history. We've got 4 million kids growing up.
No, that's not true.
Hungry.
That is absolutely not true. We have not got the longest waiting lists in history. That is simply not true.
Not true?
Of course it isn't.
It was my
It used to
understanding.
be a lot long. I was the health minister. They were a lot longer.
Okay.
Well, look, I think that there is. I got a taxi coming here tonight and I got into conversation with the driver and he told me he's got nothing to do with politics, never been engaged in politics at all, but is certainly going to vote in this election because he knows, he's rock certain that people are going to sell the NHS.
No,
so I do
that's not
think...
true either.
But the Brexit
this is
Party
my
does
point.
not have a policy on anything much except Brexit.
That's simply not true. And actually, the reason that I stood and will continue to stand is because I believe that we need significant political reform in this country. It should not be the case that it is a two-horse race because there are so many... Because I don't believe that the country is represented properly in a two-horse race. You have a huge amount of people that are disengaged at the moment.
But if you want to engage them, then you have to engage them in the things that matter. And as John was saying, the NHS matters massively. And it is true that in England, waiting times for A&E are longer than ever before. That is the case.
Well, that's not what he said. Waiting times are starting to rise, not least because in a country of full employment, it actually is, there are lots of opportunities for people to do other jobs rather than perhaps working as nurses and so on.
Maybe it's not an attractive place to work at the moment.
People. I'm sorry?
Maybe it's perhaps not an attractive place to work at the moment. And you don't
It's always been a tough job.
You don't promise all these new hospitals if you're not going to build them.
Well, my husband has been treated 3 times in the past 8 years for cancer in the hospitals in Manchester and in Macclesfield with superb treatment.
Thank you.
Superb.
Thank you all very much indeed.